The reading portion of the exam is a part where it's very easy to run out of time, and so speed matters a lot, and I'm going to give a few speed tips that should help you. The number one tip just has to do with setup, and this is very simple, but before you take your exam, make sure you have everything that you need to take it. Make sure you have a pencil ready, the paper that you're going to take the exam on. Make sure that you've numbered the paper 1, 2, 3, and so on for each passage. Nothing to slow you down while you take the exam in order to get a realistic assessment of how fast you actually are. The second clue is to go one passage at a time, and there are 35 minutes that you have total to do the exam. It's broken into 4 distinct passages, which means you have 8 minutes and 45 seconds per passage. So when I actually take the practice exam for the reading part, I go over here and set a timer for 8 minutes and 45 seconds. I start that timer, and then I see if I can go ahead and finish all of passage 1 or passage 2 or 3 or 4 in the time that I have. I see how far I go over. The next clue is to skim, and I'll show you an example of that, but the main trick to skimming is to read the beginning carefully and then look for keywords after that. So, I mean, the first paragraph of an entire essay you should read carefully, and then the first sentence of each paragraph you should also read carefully. So let's go ahead and just show what that looks like very quickly here. If I'm on the passage 1 and I scroll down, well, I'm going to read this entire first paragraph here very carefully, and I won't do that because that takes a little too long, but I'll also read each paragraph after that. I'm going to read the first sentence carefully. So let me show you an example. It says, "The kids who hung around the community center liked Abshu because he never preached, and it was clear that when they spoke, he listened." All right, I already know the main points of this paragraph just from this opening sentence. That he was hanging around a community center, they liked him, and it was because he listened to them. So then in the remaining part of the paragraph, which goes down to here, I'm only going to skim for keywords. So here, real problem, offhand remark, game of pool, basketball court, making them feel special with a word or two. So there I already got a lot of information that he could identify problems, that he was just playing games with them a lot of the time when he did that, and that he could make them feel special with what he said. But I didn't actually read this thoroughly. I already knew enough from this first sentence to know what kind of topics were going to come up here. And just to show one more example of that, here for this next paragraph, I would read, "Abshu wished that his own family could have stayed together, period." That's the only sentence I'm reading completely carefully. The rest of it, I'm going to say, "For foster care sisters, brother, mother, couldn't help wondering, better way." Oh, right, so not the perfect place to grow up. That's skimming. It's super important both when you're reading the questions and when you're reading the answers. So here, if we go over to question 1, the point of view from which the passage is told can best be described so I'm going to read the whole first sentence as carefully as I can, the question carefully, but for each of these following, I might just focus on the first half. A man looking back on the best years of his life. A narrator describing his experiences as they happen. An unidentified narrator describing a man who devoted his life, ... An admiring relative. And so I know, even just from the first part, that this narrator was unidentified. It wasn't a relative. It might be a narrator describing his experiences as they happen. Not really. It's not in real time. A man looking back on the best years of his life. No, it's about Abshu. It's the unidentified narrator. I knew that without reading these entire prompts. That's going to save me time. That's skimming. Focus. This one is a huge deal. You'll notice the first time you take the exam, if you're like me, you'll be distracted. You'll be thinking about the rest of your life. I was looking at the clock too much. Everything in your mind needs to go away. If you're thinking about getting into college, if you're thinking about how nervous you are about the exam, if you're thinking about, I wish I was done here, if you're thinking about your favorite pop song, you need to quit, because every part of your brain has to be focused on the passage, and that ultimately will make you much, much faster. And then finally, practice. And this I keep emphasizing over and over again, but you will become better at all three of these skills only by continuing to take practice exams and working on them. And so take more exams as much as you can.